Hi everyone. I thought I'd do a bit of a speculative video today to talk about what I think is likely to happen in the event that David Warner resigned. So a lot of people have been talking about axing him, and I've looked at the people that are in reserve, and I just don't see that there's anyone that could take his spot. Possibly Aaron Hardy, if they wanted to risk him going up the order or reshuffling the order, and I don't think reshuffling the order is a good idea when everyone else is quite happy with where they are. So, what would happen if David Warner said, "Look, enough's enough. He doesn't want to go to India. Um, he'll play out the rest of the South African series, and then that's it. He's resigned." So, if he were to retire, resign, whatever, now in the middle of the South African series, we know what will happen is that Marcus Harris will come in. Marcus Harris is in the squad. He is a normal opener. He will come in, and it would be an opportunity for Harris. I think that Harris has been waiting for a while to show that actually his test record is not how bad he is, that he's a better player than that. And, he would try his best, but I think ultimately he'd probably fail against an extremely strong South African unit. People would be saying, oh, look, it's against a very strong South African unit. We should persist with him. And so we'd probably take him to India. And that's probably what would happen. But if Warner was kind enough to retire at the end of the series, and then we've got a little bit of a gap before we go to India, would they take Marcus Harris? They'd probably take him. Whether they'd play him would be another option. I think they would take at least one other option. Who that would be is up for speculation. Aaron Hardy has been playing in the Australia A matches, but not as an opener. So if you look at the Australian A matches, and I'll just quickly have a look at that. I'll see who the openers were. Um, yeah, Australia A. Australia A. So yeah, I can't see who the Australia A matches are at the moment, but yeah, I think that if you look through it, PM's 11, there you go. PM's 11. So who was the opener for that? You had Matt Renshaw and Marcus Harris. So that's suggesting that maybe Matt Renshaw and Marcus Harris are the ones that they'd be looking at. Because Matt Renshaw got 81, Marcus Harris got 73 in that match. Aaron Hardy only got 23. So, didn't take any wickets. In the second innings, Renshaw got a century. So, look, maybe you'd be looking at Matt Renshaw. And you might be saying, all right, Matt Renshaw, average of 37, first class, test average of 33. He's only 26 years old. You'd probably take Renshaw along since he's the one playing in the Prime Minister's 11. I don't know if he was playing in the Australia A's, but look, you might do that. Then you might say, all right, um, let's give him a go. Let's say, all right, this is the one that he'd be given it to go to. And there'd be some argument that that's a good way to do it. You might say, all right, well, Matt Renshaw played for Australia before. It's probably a bit unfair that he was dumped, but so be it. And Renshaw, Hardy doesn't open the batting. So, he's been all right, but he bats at like, what's that, six? You got Peter Handscomb, Henry Hunt. So Henry Hunt, 35 for a first class average, and he does open the batting a lot. But yeah, I mean, he's not really performing quite at the level that you'd like. There's Jake Weatherall. I mean, Henry Hunt's a captain for South Australia. Jake Weatherall, perhaps not quite there. But I mean, you've got players there that maybe you'd consider. Opening batsman, Henry Hunt. Maybe you'd consider him. Maybe you'd take along Matt Renshaw, Marcus Harris, and Henry Hunt. And you might take those three along. So I think Josh Inglis is a fair bit off the pace as far as a squad is concerned. He is sort of the heir apparent as the backup wicketkeeper. If anything were to happen to Carey, um, Inglis has already played a couple of ODIs and 9 T20s. Yes, I didn't notice that. Um, but yeah, so you could potentially take Inglis if you're worried about Carey. I don't think they're worried about Carey. So probably you'd be looking at. I think Aaron Hardy has done enough to be in consideration, and you'd probably take him along for the match. Whether he did play anything, I don't know. But so you could potentially have Harris, Renshaw, and Hunt all fighting for one opening position. That could be your situation if Warner were to retire at the end of this series. And they're really the three that are sort of putting their hands up. They're in the Prime Minister's 11. They're in almost there. Henry Hunt, you might not quite put there, um, but you might because you might. Certainly, you'd probably have Renshaw and Harris, and you'd be very worried about having Renshaw and Harris. I'd actually be like going, "Ooh, I don't want either of them." Would you take Will Pucovski along? I don't think so at this stage, but maybe in the future you might take him along just for the experience. But I'd be nervous because of his concussion issues. So they're probably the ones that you'd look at. And I guess the issue, Marcus Harris is 30, Matt Renshaw's only 26, so he's all right. And Henry Hunt is just, what's he, 25. So these are in the good ages, but Harris a little bit older might not be quite as good for him. Yeah, so you've got that situation, and they were against full strength South African bowlers, and South African bowlers are pretty good. And that was where was that held? It was held in Canberra. I don't know how Canberra plays as far as if it's good for batting or not. Um, but yeah, it was a good bowling outfit, and they still did pretty well. So yeah, but which one would win? Probably on form, you might go with Renshaw, but you might go with Harris. You'd be a bit up in the air. And whoever played, they'd have 4 tests to prove themselves. You'd think that Khawaja would probably still do well, although Khawaja has had a problem in the subcontinent. Even though he was born in Pakistan, he has not done that well in the subcontinent. You'd probably have some issues with whoever ends up opening. And whoever it is, whether it's Renshaw, Harris, or Hunt, or Hardy, um, and I think they'd probably be the 4 that you'd take. Whoever it is that stuffs up, there'd be people who say, well, they've got to play all 4 tests, and so they'd probably play all 4 tests unless they get injured or something amazing happens. So the other 3 would just be there for baggage. So that sort of suggests that you might not want to take that many. You might just take Harris and Renshaw, and then you might play Renshaw and you'd have Harris as backup, and that's all you'd take. And goodbye Hardy, goodbye Hunt, unless you're playing Hardy for another spot. Um, and he might be there as backup in case Cameron Green doesn't follow through. Because you've only got so many spots, you don't want to take 50 people. So that's probably what you do. So Hunt, sorry about that, mate. You're not quite there. Um, he's obviously got captaincy credentials. So yeah, you'd be looking at that sort of situation. Of course, if Warner's okay, you'd only take the one spare, and that would probably be Marcus. Well, actually, it might be Matt Renshaw. I think Renshaw might have jumped over Harris, but it's hard to know. Um, Depends on who you're talking to as to which one is the better one. I think I mean, they both got good techniques. Harris is more of a blocker. Um, got a very low strike rate, 45, goodness. Um, Although, actually, Renshaw's got 42 in tests. I didn't even realise that. So maybe Renshaw's even more of a blocker. Yeah, Renshaw is a bit more of a blocker, but I don't know. For some reason, I have a bit more faith in Renshaw. And yeah, Renshaw does have a test century, whilst Harris doesn't. It's probably quite close between the two of them, but I've got a feeling that Renshaw's probably maybe in a bit of a better chance. Renshaw says, I'm ready, feels primed if Australia chance arrives. Um, yeah, Harris's career best 100 rewarded with with Victorian win. That was in October. I mean, they'd each probably want to think that they're doing pretty well, but I don't know if they really are. It's a tough one. It's the sort of situation where you go, well, this is not a good It's not a good situation. This is just kind of to know if we want to be here. This is yeah. So what did he get? He got 142 batting at number 3. Oh, that was an ODI. Yeah. Look, and Renshaw's been batting in the middle order of late quite a lot. Um, not at first class level, but in like list days or the 1 day domestics. We used to call them odds. So Renshaw was batting 4 there. So it's a tough thing to do. Would you put Renshaw in because he's playing for the same team as Khawaja, both play for Queensland? I don't know if that makes a difference at test level, but it'd be a tough one. It'd be the wrong kind of headache. It'd be a situation where you think, well, either of them these are probably going to fail. Would you go with a Henry Hunt? I don't think so. I don't think he's done enough of late. I don't think Henry Hunt's a long way off, but he's not. I mean, I picked 10 players to look at, and he was not one of them. So, but he is in. He was in the Prime Minister's 11, and yeah, it's a difficult thing to sort of say. Well, is this what we want to have for our players? Is it, is this someone that we want to put in there? I mean, we've got Hardy batting at number 8 in his debut, um, took 4 wickets. So, I mean, he's just having another bowler. Maybe he's the wrong sort of player to be playing in the Australian lineup right now. You also have Joe Burns, interestingly enough. So, of course, he has fallen off the radar quite a lot. But I mean, 4 Test centuries in 23 matches. Um, Test average of 36. He's not terrible. But yeah, we sort of ignored him quite a lot. He doesn't really, you know, he's sort of up there and thereabouts. And you have Burns and Renshaw open sometimes for Queensland, sometimes not. So, the Queensland seem to have a lot of openers, and it's going to be a difficult decision to decide who you go with. It's not an obvious choice, whoever they end up picking. I mean, you got Sam Whiteman's another one that's probably a long way off, but opens the batting sometimes. So, do you go back with a Mitchell Marsh and see if he can be an opener? Probably not. But when he's only 31, he's got 2 Test centuries, 11 first-class centuries. His record's not that good. He's just not consistent, really. He's more of a bowler than a batsman, really. Even though his brother Sean ended up opening quite a lot, and of course his father Jeff was an opener. Would you want to try to transform Mitchell Marsh into an opener? I don't think you would, but we'd basically be having to make someone. Either we go with someone that has a bit of a failed record, like a Renshaw or a Harris, or Joe Burns, who I'd say at this stage has been a bit of a failure. You go with someone that's got the risk of concussions in Will Bukowski, or you try to make a makeshift opener out of someone that doesn't normally open. And I think the leading candidate for that sort of situation would be Aaron Hardy. Um, I don't know. I don't know that Aaron Hardy is a Shane Watson sort of player. He might be a bit different. Shane Watson did open, but I don't know. Look, I would be very nervous if we have to pick someone else. I would much rather be able to go with David Warner. If we were going to pick someone, perhaps it'd be Harris and Renshaw. I think that seems to be what the selectors are sort of suggesting. Henry Hunt's in the mix, obviously. Is Will Bukowski in the mix? Maybe. But Will Bukowski creates challenges because, particularly with what happened to, I've forgotten his name, but the guy that was hit on the head and died. And we are very conscious of concussions now. We don't want that to happen to another player. And that would be even if you're taking to India where it doesn't bounce very much, India do have some quite good fast bowlers now. Would they respect the fact that he's got a risk of concussion? And I can't see why they would. Well, it's not their responsibility to protect an opposition player. They're just going to bounce him. They're going to go, oh, you can't handle bounces? All right, we're going to bounce you. And I think that would be very risky. And I mean, I don't think anyone from India would be deliberately trying to kill him, but I don't think that they would take responsibility if that was the result. And I think quite reasonably that would be Australia's responsibility. That would be Pucovski's responsibility. Phil Hughes was the one. I don't know why I forgot his name briefly. No disrespect to Phil Hughes, but I just sometimes forget names. But yeah, look, it would not be an easy thing to do, and I think that it's not something that the selectors want to be going through. We'd much rather have Warner, and look, we found Khawaja. He's been great. I think we'd much rather have Warner and Khawaja for as long as possible until somebody else is ready. And I mean, Renshaw said he's ready. I don't know if he really is. Harris said he was ready and then failed. I think it's one thing to say you're ready and another thing to be ready. And as we saw, I mean, whilst West Indies are known to have some quite good bowlers, I don't think they really performed in the Test arena in this tour. So him scoring well against West Indies in a PM's 11 match doesn't necessarily mean that he's ready for India. In India, it's going to be very hard to beat. India is one of the better teams in the world right now. India still have a chance of making it to the World Test Championship. Even if Australia win all three matches against South Africa, which is far from a foregone conclusion, go to India. India's still going to be going, okay, we want to win this to get in the World Test Championship. We want to prove we're number one. We always win at home. I don't think they're going to be wanting to drop any matches. I think they're going to want to go for broke. And if Australia go without their best batsman, without Warner, and then they're not sure who the other opener should be to replace him, that's going to be a vulnerability that India is going to capitalise on. They're going to target whoever's in there, whether it's Renshaw or Harris or Hunt or Hardy or Bancroft. I don't think Bancroft's in the mix at the moment, but if he was, I don't think that they would be, letting him have an easy run. And if it's Pucovski, they'd be just going, oh, bouncing. That's crazy. It's not. It's not the situation we're ready for as a cricket team. I think that we'd rather have 1 or 2 years of happiness with Khawaja Warner, and I don't think we want to disrupt that right now by getting rid of Warner when we don't need to. Yeah, that's it from me. Bye bye now.